Hey everyone, this is the Helping Friendly podcast. Hello, my name's RJ. I'm here with Megan. Hey Megan.
Hey RJ, how are you?
Good, good. Jonathan is here, or he's not here, but he will be here soon. So
He's on
he
his
will be joining
way.
us. He's on his way.
Hmm.
He said he'd be right there, which is, on the internet, it's just, you know, people can be right there. Megan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I love long weekends. It's like the best. I'm still like struggling to get back to like real life after like a 3-week vacation. So now I'm glad for the long weekend so I can continue to delay that reality check.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy this time of year. This is not my favorite time of year.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah, winter and like this long slog from like January to March where there's like not much to look forward to, although I am going to Mexico this year, so that's
Yeah,
something to look forward to. Yeah,
every day is a gift, Megan.
it's true. It's true, RJ. It's so
You know,
true.
just think about it like that. Well, while we're waiting for Jonathan, I have an announcement, not an announcement, but a correction
Ooh.
from last week.
Uh-oh.
Um, my I said that we were talking about our first concerts, and Jonathan asked our first concerts, and I said my stepbrother took me to my first concert, Nine Inch Nails. And although
Yeah.
he is my stepbrother, I never refer to him. I almost always refer to him as my brother because I've known him since I was three, 2 or 3. And one of my relatives saw it and told him, and then he texted me and was like, "Why do you call me your stepbrother?"
Oh,
And I was like, "I don't
no.
know. I usually don't." But so
Just, like, came out.
yeah. So to my brother Jim, hello, and it was his birthday 2 days ago. So happy birthday,
Oh, that's
happy
nice.
birthday, Jim.
And he
Um,
took a young RJB to a Nine Inch Nails concert, which is really so awesome. Like, I just
yeah,
love picturing you as this young kid at a Nine Inch Nails concert.
I did not
You
fit
must have
in.
been yeah, you must have been like, "What is going on
It was
here?" It's
terrifying.
hilarious.
It was fully terrifying.
I
Unlike
bet.
Mr. Jonathan Hart, who is not terrifying. Hey, Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Jonathan
He's here,
he's
but
here.
we can't hear him.
He's here.
Yeah.
But we will hear him soon. We will hear
Yeah.
him soon.
I have faith.
Um, so this is the second of our 40 for 40 project where we bring you a Phish or other show to celebrate the band's 40th anniversary. So every week we're going to be revisiting another show, and we're um we're on to 1984. But I guess at first I should say we would really appreciate it if you all subscribe to Osiris Premium. You can go to osirispod.com/premium. We're going to put out another bonus episode in the next day or so. So, support what we're doing. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to give you more amazing content, and you guys are going to come hang out with us. So, Megan, we decided for this year, 1984, to not do the show that I think most people have listened to, the 12/1/84 show from Nectar's. And we decided to do the 11/3 show from Slade Hall at the University of Vermont. And I think there's maybe a reason why people listen to the 12/1 show over the 11/3 show. We listened to that for you all, so you didn't have to.
That's exactly right. We did it so you don't have to listen to a really poor recording. But it was worth it. I listened to it twice now and I feel like it was worth it. It's jammy. It's a jammy show. So it's kind of cool.
I think it was fun. I mean, there was a lot going
Mhm.
on there. There's like there we'll talk about it. Not a lot of originals, no Trey originals yet. But there's some, there's one original by Jeff Holdsworth, and you start to, I mean, I think compared to last week, the 83 show we talked about, like they sound like an actual band now,
Yeah, I
right?
agree.
Like that was the thing I
Mhm.
noticed. This is like sounds like a band that's practicing and rehearsing and sounding pretty good. But I guess before we get into that, we should talk about the like what we know about this show. So Slade Hall, it's one set. It might be incomplete. We don't really know. There's some cutting in the show. We know that Mark Daubert made a guest appearance at the very end, and this could have been a 2 set show. We might be totally missing a set. And then there were tapes that circulated from the show that said 11/3/83. So that was wrong. But it's also, according to Fishnet, it's possible that the show was actually on 11/2/84. So we don't really. In the Phish book, there's a flyer for 11/2. So we don't really know when this show happened. We don't know much about it, and we don't know if it's a full show or not. But besides that, we do know what they played.
And we also
Probably
know some
happened in-
things about it. Oh, Jonathan's back. Great.
Jonathan's here.
Yeah, probably
Hi.
happened in 1984, right?
That,
know
that
that.
we know. That we know. That we know. And it's cool to think about because it's actually their like third show. The second show they played like a few days after the show we talked about last week, and then which was like another dorm gig, and then they were on this like
Well-
hiatus basically over the summer or in the spring and the summer because of Trey's prank that he.
Well, we do have like one song in a set list from an October show as well, according to Phish.net. So, there may have been other shows. We just don't have any
Yeah.
documentation. Apparently,
Yeah.
nobody thought to start Phish.net back in the 80s.
Yeah. So
Lame.
it's a loss, but we know there weren't shows in the spring and the summer because Trey was kicked
Right.
out of UBM or suspended, I should say, for sending
He was
a heart and a hand.
he
In
was
the
on a
mail.
break.
He was on
He
a
was
break.
on a break.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he was taking an academic break, like a
Yeah.
lot of college
Yeah.
kids.
Exploring other opportunities and avenues
Yeah.
of life.
But it worked out
Brian-
great because Tom Marshall was as well, and
Yeah.
so they ended up reconnecting in New Jersey.
true.
So it worked
And-
out.
And what we said before Jonathan joined is like there's no Trey songs yet. So, it's sort of like it's a good time, and I'm sure he was writing some stuff, but we don't see any of that until a little bit later. Brian from Attendance Bias has this comment that the band themselves don't know exactly when their first show was or where or when certain shows were played, which is true. It's so amazing how different that is now. It's sort of an obvious point, but you can't really play a show without it being on the internet. Like even like
Yeah.
a really small band playing a little bar, like it's going to be, I don't know.
There's info. Yeah. There's like a
I-
trail. You could find some sort of advertisement on Instagram or something for it. So yeah.
You can't trust the
Absolutely.
internet though to preserve that stuff. I mean, a lot of bands, almost entire online existences from the early part of this century disappeared when MySpace dived. So, everybody, you got to be your own archivist until you're cool enough and big enough that somebody else cares to do it. So just remember, take care of your own information out there.
Well,
Says Phish
Jonathan,
didn't.
Jonathan, as as an IT professional, what do you recommend? Paper?
Multiple solid state hard drives. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to make recommendations. Don't hold me to
A good
nothing,
old trusty
y'all.
notebook.
Trusty
Yeah,
notebook.
because those don't
Trusty notebook.
disappear or fall apart or anything like that.
I don't know. I have all my old notebooks. I don't have any of my
Right.
old computer stuff. I'll tell you that.
I do
much.
too. I'm a terrible I have all my old computer stuff too, but God knows what how I'm gonna read these 5 1/4 inch floppies.
So
Exactly.
Brian
Dated
last week
myself.
did an amazing job of what happened in 1983, and he talked about like kind of the cultural, milestones. And this was only 1 year later, so we don't have to talk that much because it was only the next year. Although,
And plus, Brian's not here to do it, so we'll just.
Oh,
wait
no,
till
I
next
got it covered.
episode when
Don't
he's
worry.
back.
okay, all I was going to say is
Okay.
just that it was the year that the Summer Olympics were held in Los Angeles, which was a big deal, and I don't think has anything to do with this show. What else, Jonathan? What else happened in 1984?
Everything from 1983 plus one. So that's it.
Yeah, that tracks.
They
Plus
did.
one.
Apple had that 1984 ad, the Super Bowl
Yeah.
ad, like the
Yeah.
Orwellian 1984 ad. That's the thing that happened.
Oh,
I wonder what else happened. There's some other stuff. There's some weird stuff that happened in a lot of different countries also.
Yes,
Probably, yeah.
1984 was a year that transpired, and I didn't bother to research the year at all because I'm here to talk about Phish.
All right, that's fine. I mean, 11/3. So we're on, and we talked about, Jonathan, just to catch you up quickly. Sorry for the repeat to the listeners. We listen to this show so you don't have to because the sound quality is bad. This was a Saturday night in Burlington. It was actually 3 days before the 1984 election. when Reagan won a landslide, really, re-election beat
It was
Mondale.
called a landslide.
It was called a landslide, but that's not what the song "Landslide" is about. I don't think.
No, they were
No.
predicting Ronald Reagan's electoral success in 1984.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
okay. I just want to make sure that there was no other musical.
It was really
notes.
about Dukakis because it was about the landslide. The landslide brought you down is the lyric. So
I see. Thank you. Okay, so Phish is clearly, I think, from listening to this, and again, you can listen to the highlights, and there's only one set, like we said, but they sound like a different band from 1983. I don't know. This is a little bit of a jump forward. I think they sound rehearsed. You can hear them calling songs. Like it sounds like they're more of a real band than they were a year before.
they've had a few more practices, I think, by this point.
Yeah, and they've come back together, and I think started rehearsing kind of in earnest together after when Trey's back. And I think they're probably pretty inspired. Trey's going to start bringing new music to them that he's writing, and I think it's a pretty exciting time for them, probably.
Yeah, I want to talk more about how horrible the tape is, real quick.
It's really bad.
It is. Do not listen to this on headphones, folks. Put it on some speakers, just for the sake of your ears. It is. I mean, it's a overloaded cassette tape. It is not mixed for your pleasure. It is just. It's really fatiguing to listen to, and I was I think I texted you guys. I think it was after Can't You Hear Me Knocking, St.
Yeah.
Stephen's Can't You Hear Me Knocking. There's this pause where it goes completely quiet, and I let out an audible sigh of relief. My wife looks in, what's going on? It's like, oh, it got quiet.
It stopped. Yeah, I was telling you I had to literally stop in the middle and listen to like the Rich and Bobby sit-in of Peggy-O last night from Playing in the Sand, because I was like, I just need to like clean my ears with something like clean.
But
it's
really,
still cool.
yeah, we're just talking about sound quality, right?
Right. No,
Yes, yes.
the performance is a different story.
Yeah.
Also terrible, but differently. No, I'm kidding. It's part of the reason that the sound quality is so frustrating is because I think there's a lot going on here that you're not really able to hear.
Yeah.
I think that Holdsworth is lost in the tape somewhere. Sometimes I think I'm hearing him. Sometimes I'm certain I'm just hearing Trey. Sometimes I can't tell. Mike comes through really well. He is actually part of the problem on the tape, believe it or not. It's kind of the opposite of the MSG live Phish release.
Yeah.
But again, Mike's the problem.
You mean that there's a lot of Mike?
Well, yeah, the bass is part of what's overloading. I mean, it sounds like it was recorded on one of those little like cassette players that you guys might be too young. Megan, you might remember these cassette decks that are just like
I'm only like a year or two older than RJ.
Yeah,
I just want to say, like,
sure.
I'm not like 10 years older than RJ.
I think
just
if you
for
was
the record.
closer to my age, but not,
I don't
you're
remember
definitely younger.
Tips.
And I would not guess that you were your age. So there. But it's one of these like things they used in class and just would sit on a tabletop, and it has this tiny built-in mic, and it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
Sounds like that kind of recording. Maybe a boombox on the side of the room.
Do you guys think it was that loud in the room, or do you think it was just the recording? Because it sounds like it's basically like raging, but it's really just the recording. Like it probably wasn't
that loud where
in
the tape
room.
machine is.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is apparently right next to the speakers.
I think that's what it was. Yeah.
It's too bad they had to get a professional sound person, because like maybe what if all the shows sounded like this? It'd be interesting. So I guess what else do we need to say to kind of set this up? Because I think there's some really cool jamming in here, and I think there's I feel like that's what we're here for. But
Well,
Jonathan,
this
is
is
there
also
any?
one of their
go ahead,
first shows that they're billed as Phish, right? This is they've just decided on this name and kind of put this name together, and now they're officially Phish, and it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, according to them, they were always Phish, but we know differently. So
Yeah,
I agree that is important.
they're wrong.
Only one original in this as well.
Yeah.
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 a Holdsworth original, it should be noted.
Well, and no Trey originals yet. And as Megan said, we're getting some good collaboration starting around now between Tom and Trey, which is cool.
But it's not long. It's expanding the context here a little bit. It's just a month from when Trey originals we know are circulating. So they were coming, maybe in the works, and you can almost hear hints of them during at least one of the jams.
You think he's bringing in some of that stuff?
Yeah, because their next show they play Fluffhead and Slave. They play a couple originals.
Recorded known show.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Nectar.
I think it's just I don't mean to correct you. I just think it's worth noting for the people out there who will come and correct us that these are the only shows we know about. There may well be other performances of some kind in between, but then again, maybe not.
We'll never know.
No, we will not.
We'll never know, and I'm still confused. I think someone needs to. Maybe we can get like a foundation somewhere to give us a little bit of a grant to go to Vermont and go digging through the archives. Do you think someone's done that already? Do you think someone's already gone to UVM and dug through the archives trying to find Phish info?
If nothing else, like UVM students who were Phish heads have delved, torn through the stacks. I mean, this is how we got Trey's. Well, I guess it was Goddard, but this kind of thing is how we got things like Trey's thesis and all of that. People looked around. People have excavated wherever they may. At some point, there will be a dig at Ian's farm.
Dig.
We'll find
excavation.
We'll find the pig, and
I don't know if I.
But I do feel like this is why I actually
people.
feel like we have to say that this is the next show. You can say it's like the next show because somebody would have found out if there was evidence somewhere about another show.
Pre-internet, flyers get lost. Nobody bothers to remember. They all kind of run together after a while. We have to be open to the possibility. That's all.
That's fair. And I want to say that the next show, which we're not going to touch on, this was Nectar's Upstairs 12184, which is Metronome, and our friends who now run Nectar's are starting to put shows on up there. And I saw the room a couple months ago. It's still there. It's a cool place. So when you're in Burlington, go to Nectar's and check it out. There will be bands playing upstairs and downstairs all year. One thing just for musical context, I feel like 84 in my mind is like very important musically, but I was looking today at like the albums that were released in 84. There's some, interesting albums. I don't know how, I think it's less of a milestone than I thought. Like you have 1984 Van Halen, Bon Jovi's debut, Born in the USA, Purple Rain, Double Nickels on the Dime, Red Hot Chili Peppers debut, Unforgettable Fire, Stop Making Sense. Those are the ones that I noted. But I don't know. There's not like, Born in the USA was a kind of a game-changing album in some ways. But it's not all that revolutionary.
No, but Bon Jovi's going to like dominate pop music for like a while. I mean, Bon Jovi is like the soundtrack of my youth, I feel like.
True.
November 5th, Bryan Adams released Reckless, which was a huge record in the time. And this is exactly what Phish was working against. The Tears for Fears later that month would release Shout, which was, I think it was from their second album. It was their first like number one hit. I don't think it hit number one until the next year. It took a while to grow.
Can I go back to Bryan Adams for a second?
I mean, if you must.
Was that was like that had all of his or many of his big songs?
Yeah.
On it. I never owned the album, surprisingly.
Yeah, but you know half the songs.
Yeah.
Even if you don't want to, you know half the songs.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Do They Know It's Christmas was recorded that month. I think it came out later. Boy, what an arrogant song that is. And in December, Tipper Gore formed the PMRC, which gave us those little label stickers on our records.
Oh, yeah.
And because she heard Purple Rain. So
Gasp.
thank you,
Purple
Prince.
Rain.
Well, Warrant would write a song in an ode to Tipper Gore, which I remember getting that Warrant album when I was like 10 or something,
Is this
or
something we had
11.
Warrant albums?
Yeah, I mean, I had it. I had Warrant. I had the Warrant tape, and the last. You guys know that song, "Ode to Tipper Gore," right?
No, I've never listened to a
I've heard of
Warrant
it.
album.
So it's just them cursing for like 4 minutes. It's awesome. It's
So
just them.
cool.
It's just them saying like "fuck" over and over. And when I was 11 and I got the CD, I mean, I was like, that was kind of mind blowing that was even possible, that existed. So now we're, as usual, not even talking about Phish at all.
That's all right. We should talk a little bit more. Something that's vaguely important to to Phish, tangentially important. Frankie Goes to Hollywood's "Welcome to the Pleasure Dome" had just come out. The song "Relax" was a big hit, and of course is referenced in a later Phish song. Also big in this time, I don't know, REO Speedwagon, "Wheels Are Turning." That's kind of huge. XTC was still active and had put out an album earlier in the year, but I scrolled past it and I can't find it. The Big Express came out in October. Good stuff. And that's all I think I'm willing to go into. Also, there's a Hawkwind album. I almost said there was a cool Hawkwind album, but it's 1980s Hawkwind, so it's not cool. That's all I
I
got.
don't even know what that is.
I've never heard of that.
All right, we'll be starting our Hawkwind podcast next week, so tune in for that.
Oh God.
People are going to be excited, especially the people who've never heard of Hawkwind.
All right. Not as excited as the people who have heard of Hawkwind.
True. Good point. Okay, so what do we the covers? I mean, man, it's just so crazy to see this, this band that we're so used to playing just a couple covers. This is like a show of covers, but I like "In the Midnight Hour" as an opener. I think it's it's a great song, right? Like, can't really call it anything other than like an awesome song. But how do you guys feel about this opener and how the set kind of develops?
I think it takes nerve to sing that song if you're not in a wedding band, in which case it doesn't matter if you're any good, or an actual like blues singer, R&B singer. But I think they do a fine job, and then they stretch it a little, and it's kind of not a lot. It's like 6 minutes, but it's really it's a very short song in reality, and I think they do a nice job.
Yeah, I think that Trey and Mike kind of build off each other in really great ways in this version. There's like great energy, good pacing, good opener, and they come back into the song really well after their little like mini jam, and the crowd just goes crazy for it. They're super enthusiastic, or I don't know if there's just like 5 people there that are really into it, but they're like yelling and screaming, and then they're playing some samples that sound like a bell. They're kind of like
Some
tolling
like
this
chimes
bell.
or whatever.
Yeah, there's like fair amount of samples in the show. It's funny.
Yeah. There was, and there's no keys, obviously. So there's, there's some reliance on those samples. That's
what are they making them off? Like,
I don't know.
They, like a little machine or something?
What do you think?
No idea.
Weird.
I honestly don't have any idea how they're making those noises.
Is it Fishman?
It could be somebody's digital watch just standing right next to the tape recorder. I'm kidding, but I really have no idea. I was also thinking that the raucous crowd could be a handful of people standing near the tape recorder, but there's some evidence later of some very raucous behavior in the audience, hoots and hollers and whatnots.
Yeah.
So in terms of Wilson Pickett's songs / covers, because he covered Mustang Sally, but it made it famous. Do you guys take Midnight Hour or Mustang Sally if you had to?
Midnight Hour.
Choose.
I'd probably say Midnight Hour, although I like Mustang Sally.
Mustang Sally is for a wedding or a random appearance of Bruce Springsteen, but otherwise Midnight Hour.
So this
A wedding.
the next after this they play Wild Child, a Lou Reed song, which is fine.
I think it's cool. I like that. This is from Lou's first record. His like
mhm.
the self-titled album right after he was doing Velvet Underground stuff, and I think some of these songs, and maybe even this one, was like supposed to go into be a VU song and didn't happen. I watched that documentary on VU that seemed very Lou centric last year, and I remember them talking about this point. But yeah, I guess Trey sang this with Space Antelope too. If anybody remembers the
Hmm.
existence of Space Antelope, I think it's cool, but I think the jam is more important,
Yeah.
and it's also very cool,
Yeah.
entertaining.
The jams here, in like you said, Megan, they're pretty interesting, and they go outside of what you would expect from an 84, like a band that's been playing for a year. They all, in all these songs, like they go pretty far from the composition pretty quickly, which is really cool.
Yeah, and they have really great segues too. This version is hard to hear. This Wild Child, there's like the audio is particularly bad during the song, but it's very cool how they transition into the jam. And they played this song the next show too, and then a few times in '85, and then they play it once again at '88 in the front, and that's the end of it. But it's
They
kind of
should
cool.
totally bring it back. It's been like
Right?
1,700 shows. I looked at the stats, and it's like they should bust that out in Mexico.
That would be so awesome. Yeah, and this jam after is awesome. It's really like guitar driven-y, and it's just an amazing segue into Bertha too. I mean, these sound rehearsed. Like it sounds like they're practicing these kind of like segues into the songs. It's neat.
Bertha's as long as once you know Bertha, it's like an easy song, so it's kind of perfect
And then pop
to
into.
roll into from, a guitar groove jam, and that's kind of what they're doing. They kind of land in
Hmm.
there quite handily. I
Hmm.
think it goes really well, and the Bertha's fine. I like the little, yeah, I like it a lot. I think it's very cool shit.
Yeah, I feel like he's putting a lot of like little flourishes into the solos. I mean, he sounds like he's been playing a lot of guitar, Trey. He really does. He sounds like he's been spending time with his guitar. And there's a part of me that just loves so much when Trey plays the Grateful Dead. It's so good. It's so good. I love it.
So,
Yeah,
Jonathan, there's a lot of Grateful Dead covers here.
a couple.
A couple.
Couple.
I mean, more than at your typical Fish show. So, what do you think about this Bertha?
It's good. It's rocking. Like it's fine. It's what Birth ought to be.
Yeah.
Not enough people screaming when they do the "Test Me, Test Me" lyric. So there you
Yeah.
go. I just
Yeah.
made that up. I don't remember if anybody was screaming at that.
I don't think
I
anyone
don't think
was.
so.
I don't think
No.
anyone was.
Lame.
Yeah. But this is the "Can You Hear Me Knocking?" Great, like great cover. The energy was great here. During this whole show, the "Can You Hear Me Knocking?" was particularly cool. Like you could hear people. Yeah, and like you said, Megan, maybe there were only 5 people, but they were loud and they were rowdy.
Yeah, and I
Look at
think
the
that was
boom.
a sample beforehand. I thought it was someone yelling. There's something that's like knock, 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 and I thought it was someone yelling, but I think it's a sample
Well,
as
now I have to go
well.
back and re-listen
Yeah,
to
because
this
I listened
tape.
to it a few
Damn it!
times. I know. And it sounds like it's recorded almost. It's weird, and it makes sense because they're about to play Can't You Hear Me Knocking? So I don't know if this is like the beginning of Fishman's trolling samples, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. It's not like he had a sample pad in
Yeah, I don't
1984.
know. I
So
don't know
I
how
don't
they're
know.
doing that. Yeah, it's weird.
I thought it was raucous audience members, but I was also reading a book, so it might not have been.
Yeah. Listen back and tell me what you think.
Do I
What?
have to?
Yeah. Just to
Yes.
that part.
The Camel Walk is the only original Holdsworth song. What?
You skipped the St. Stephen jam.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Go
you
for
gotta
it.
talk about that.
All right, let's
I want
cover it.
you to.
All right, so there was a St. Stephen jam. It was brief, but it happened, and it should happen again.
Yeah, that was
All right,
cool.
I'm done.
All right. I'm sorry. That was a big omission. So the Camel Walk is short and even shorter on the tape. It like cuts to the end, at least on the version I heard. And so you don't really hear it very much. So it's mostly just a set of covers, which is fine. But the Eyes of the World whipping post, that's like a 35-ish minutes of music, which is pretty wild.
It's funny that the camel walk cuts, because there's definitely early in whipping post a gap that sounds extremely like a tape flip. Um, it's right at the end, I think the first like key verse, right, and then it cuts right back into like the where they're going into the little chorus riff. But yeah, it's a shame about that cut in Camel Walk. First known performance. It's cool. When it kicks in, I was definitely like, oh, here we go. Ready, because
Yeah,
I
it
was
sounds
not
like
watching the
Phish.
set list as I listened. Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, it sounds like you're actually listening to Phish for the first time, and it is sad that we don't have the whole thing. Super bummer. I would have loved to have heard it.
Yeah. Whereas Eyes of the World, when it starts, doesn't exactly sound like Eyes of the World at first.
So
But they
slow.
get there. They get there. And then they have this one bit in the jam that reminds me a little bit of Phish hinting at King Crimson or something. It's just like they kind of
Hmm.
break it down into this kind of not very deadish sort of sound for a bit in there. Um, but yeah, it's pretty cool. It reminds me kind of 80s actually reminds me of almost later 80s Dead,
Mm.
than the kind of Dead that, like 1984, which is really speedy and not quite what these guys were doing.
Yeah, there's like a slower tempo to this song, but then during the jam, they build the tempo up, and they're actually doing some cool stuff playing off each other. Like it sounds like Jeff and Trey. You can actually hear them differently. Like that's the first time I could really like distinguish and hear the both
Yeah.
of them playing, which was pretty cool. And there's a great peak. Like The Eyes of the World was not my favorite of the show because it is pretty slow and long, but the peak and the jam are actually really good.
So, okay. So I have a question for you guys. We have the whipping post, which by the whipping post should just be, it should just be integrated back into the repertoire. I think we all agree on that, or at least we've talked about it before.
I think we disagree on who should sing it, though. Let's
Right.
go around the room. Who should sing it, RJ?
Trey.
Megan, who should sing Whipping Post if they bring it back?
Trey.
Phish, obviously, people. Come on.
that is the existing, I mean, the current state of that cover.
It's canonical. It's Phish's
yeah.
song these days. They just don't play
exactly.
it.
Which I'm not
true.
I'm not that thrilled about it, but it's fine. I mean, they don't play it anymore anyway, so it's fine. So we have maybe one more show that we're going to talk about with Holdsworth, because he left sometime in '86. But here's a question: could Phish have existed with two guitarists, singers, songwriters, leaders? Like, if he hadn't, he's voluntarily left, right? So it's not like they kicked him out. If he had not decided to, go his own way, as it were, do you think that they could have like been where they are now with two kind of frontmen, co-frontmen?
It's hard to know because, I think when Trey started to bring in his really intense compositional stuff, like I think it was like You and Dre Myself that like broke Holdsworth, maybe not just that song, but like one of them. That was one of them. And I think that direction was what Jeff was not into. I mean, I think there were other forces as well, but it seemed like going in this direction of like playing this really intense compositional stuff wasn't what Holdsworth was into. So he left. So they wouldn't have been Phish then if he had stayed, I guess. Maybe they would have, but I don't think
Yeah.
Trey would have stayed in a place where he wasn't going to be able to play his music. So
I think that last point is probably the key to it,
mhm.
because I think that everything else is a massive supposition that and like a stack of them, right? So it's if Jeff hadn't decided he needed to do other things with his life, if Jeff had decided he was willing to try to play this material, if Jeff had been able to keep up with and play this material, if any of those is a no, then Phish cannot possibly exist in any way resembling what Phish became. Even just having a second guitar player would have grossly changed it, even if he had been up to the material or willing and all of those things. So I don't know. There's a according to Marvel movies, there is a timeline in which that happened, and I would love to hop over there and see what that looks like. But yeah, I can't really fathom it.
Yeah, one thing I think that the reason why Phish works and has worked for so long is because Trey has been allowed to be the leader. I think the other band members have allowed him to steer the ship. And I think I'm so thankful for that because that's the reason why they're still together. Their agreement about how they're going to work together. And yeah, two frontmen, I don't know. It doesn't usually work out well for bands.
I have a counterfactual here.
Ooh.
I think
Bring it.
if Jeff doesn't like, if Jeff is like, cool, I'm in, like, I'm into like learning these songs and playing them. I think he still gets kicked out of the band at some point. I think it's like
maybe.
I think
How
it was
come?
always because I think Trey really like had, like you guys said. I mean, I think the rest of the band members were happy to like see the success of the band through like him being the leader of it. But I do think there's like, I mean, to me, I just don't think there's any possibility that there's anyone else for like not like in a sharing the spotlight kind of way, but in terms of the music and the direction and the even like the humor, all that stuff. Like there's so much stuff that happened after Jeff left that it's very interesting. But
Yeah, I feel like Trey has so much creativity that he needed an outlet that was like for him. I mean, he has so much that like, his one band isn't even enough. He has to go have like his own band, like he just is
Well,
so outpouring.
at this point, though, Phish is probably substantially more democratic than they were in
Hmm.
1991 or
Yeah.
what have you. Even though even then, I think they would argue that it was reasonably democratic, but I think that the band members were ceding certain decisions, certain responsibilities to Trey. But you raise an interesting point, maybe not intending to. Holdsworth was in the band when Trey wrote "You Enjoy Myself." Trey brought that music to a 2-guitar band. Um, so what that would have been like ultimately, one wonders.
Yeah. So interesting to think about.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll never know, like you said. What else? I mean, what else about this show?
Well, I haven't really talked about the whipping post. I want to make clear that I really like it. I like the faithful interpretation of the song. I like the way they allow it to build and peak like the Allman Brothers, a version of the Allman Brothers. And this is 1984 when I'm not sure if the Allman Brothers were even a thing really in 1984. If they were, it was some shamble version of it right before they fell apart, or they had fallen apart at this point. In fact, I think I showed it to you guys. It's not quite close to hand, but it was just a few years later that Dickie Betts released an album with Warren Haynes as the side guitarist, alternate lead vocalist that led to the reformation of the Almonds. So they're playing this stuff in a world where you're not going to see the Allman Brothers shred whipping post. Just kind of
Yeah.
interesting to me.
That's
And
so cool.
it's
I
great.
hadn't thought about that or didn't know that. That's really cool understanding that because they rip it up. I mean, it has like a big. Oh, there you've got it.
Yep.
Cool.
Dickie Betts Band, Pattern Disruptive. Yeah, young Warren Haynes on the back. It's too small for me to even show you guys, but he's such a baby.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, this 80, 84. I don't know. I need to go listen to the 12-1 show now,
Yeah,
'Cause-
it made me want to do that too, actually.
because I remember it being like What, Jonathan? Tell me.
It made me want to sit in a quiet room.
That's
It
fair
made me
too.
want to listen to like gentle acoustic guitars and things like that. It was, yeah, it did not make me go, I want to listen to another tape of this era.
Another old Phish show. Yeah, don't
Yeah.
worry. You can wait till next week to do that then.
Yeah, I got a few days.
Yeah. But the next show, it's kind of a big deal. There's like at least 200 people there. That's what the lore says. So they're, that's pretty exciting for them. And next year we have 28 shows to pick from for 1985.
Oh yeah. Well, coin toss for us. Everybody else is just gonna have to wait and wonder what we'll pick.
It's coin toss.
I don't know. Or
I don't
there
even
will
know.
be a lively discussion via text. I don't know how we'll decide it, but we'll
Brian,
come
it seems
around to
more
it
likely.
eventually.
We're gonna make Brian decide.
Yeah,
That's what he gets for not being here.
Yeah,
exactly.
this was fun. Anything else that either of you guys have?
I get excited. One thing I do like about this tape, it gets me excited thinking about the future of the band.
Mhm.
I don't need to listen to this show that much ever again. Maybe even with the Dead covers, it's just not. The tape is really painful, to be honest with you guys. But you can hear the group gelling. You can hear them kind of
Mhm.
becoming a unit. Whereas the 83 tape is really just novelty, to be honest. And by 85, hell, by 1 month later,
Mhm.
it's Phish.
That's crazy. All right. Well, I think
Exciting.
that's a good way to leave it. So we're going to see you guys back here next week for 1985. I think Back to the Future came out in 1985. So that's exciting.
Nice.
Do you know if
Well,
that's-
it's always
Wow.
fun to get back in time. Where's my Huey Lewis records?
All right. All right. We'll see you all then. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Hi,
and listening.
everyone.
Thanks, everyone.